Welcome back, everyone. It's only been a couple days since my last upload, but honestly, it feels like a week for me. Everything here is still a little wet, as you can see. But I managed to get a solid little fire going this time. At least I can stay somewhat warm. As if you guys probably haven't noticed by now, I'm not a big fan of the winter time. I'm not a snow kind of person. Honestly, if it would snow on Christmas morning and then never snow again, I would be good with that. Well, this encounter is a pretty wild one, as per usual. I feel like I always say that, but it's true. They're all pretty wild. This guy was a bit vague on details. The only thing he disclosed is this took place somewhere in Iowa. I don't really mind when people are vague with the details as long as they include at least the state that it happened in. I understand. I really do. It's hard enough just to tell your encounter out in the open. I'll be completely truthful. If I was sending my encounter into a YouTube channel to a stranger, I would be pretty discreet with the details myself. That's just the way it is. Well, in order to stop my rambling, I need to go ahead and get into tonight's encounter. Well, this evening's encounter. Everyone grab a drink. Lock your doors and windows. I guess hitting the lights won't work right now. Let's just get started. My name is Eric. I'm not going to go too far into giving a bio on myself, as the story would be too long and I don't really want to type all this out. None of it's really relevant to the story anyway. After 12 years of marriage to my high school sweetheart, she divorced me and left me for another man. It nearly killed me. But what followed the divorce was actually worse. The quiet, the emptiness, my longing for something that felt real again. I decided moving back to the country and in my hometown seemed like the answer, being close to my childhood home in the woods. Everything would be familiar and it would comfort me. It was honestly the kind of life that just made sense to me. I thought it'd be good for my daughter Lily as well. She was 15 years old, full of curiosity and energy. A city girl through and through. She wasn't used to anything but concrete and flashing lights. But she seemed excited about the idea of weekends at my place. She liked being close to her grandparents as well, being as my new house was only about 15 to 20 minutes away from them. This house that I found was a little beaten up and everything was overgrown, but it was doable, and with a little bit of work that it could be made into a really nice place. It was on about 15 acres of land, pretty thick wooded land. It had been sitting there vacant for a couple years. Perfect for us. I'd spent all my youth years hunting, fishing, and camping, so the isolation just suited me fine. I wasn't sure how Lily would react though, but I was hoping she could get used to the quiet too. Maybe we'd find some peace out here and make a stronger bond. The first couple weeks were pretty uneventful. Lily seemed to enjoy the change of scenery, though she did find the house a bit creepy, as she put it, especially at nighttime. I didn't really ponder on it much, as she was just a kid, and after all, she'd never been this far removed from the city before. That was all she knew. But then one Saturday night, while I was working some overtime, my phone rang and it was Lily. Her voice was trembling and it was barely audible as she was nearly whispering. She told me someone was outside the house and they were watching her. I tried to stay calm so it would keep her as calm as possible. I said, "What do you mean? What's outside? Is it a person?" She said that she wasn't sure because she didn't get a good look at it, but she saw eyes. She said they were yellow and glowing. I felt my guts tighten up. I was hoping it was just an animal passing through the yard, but to be safe, I told her to lock the doors and to stay inside. I left work immediately and got home as fast as I could. I was pretty nervous the entire drive. When I finally made it home, Lily was huddled up on the couch. Her face was completely white and she looked like she'd been crying. It broke my heart to see how scared she actually was. Out of anger, I grabbed my handgun and my flashlight and went outside to check around the house. There was nothing moving. The woods were still. The air was cold and quiet. I didn't see anything. No tracks in the snow. No sign of anyone or anything that had been near the house. I went back inside to try to calm her down and explain to her that the wildlife around here are a bit curious at times. I told her it was most likely just a deer. Their eyes will glow like that when they catch the light. She seemed to calm down a little when I told her this, and she didn't argue. But if I'm being honest with myself and you as well, I wasn't sure that I believed that myself. Deer don't have yellow eye shine. The next morning, I found out really quickly that I was definitely right about it not being a deer. I went outside to start my truck as me and Lily had planned to go into town to a small diner and get some breakfast. But on my way, I found some tracks in the snow. They started at the far right side tree line and led straight up to the house. Huge prints, definitely canine in nature. But they were far too large to belong to any dog or wolf. Each one was nearly 16 inches long, with deep impressions like whatever made them was probably close to 300 pounds. I've hunted and tracked a lot of animals, including moose and elk. I'm pretty good at judging the weight of an animal by the depth of the track. They stood just outside the living room window. It looked to me as if something had stood there staring into the house from outside. I crouched down by the prints, running my fingers over the edges and inspecting them a little closer. These tracks were unnaturally precise. This wasn't just an animal wandering around aimlessly. This thing knew where it was going and exactly what it was doing. Still, I convinced myself it was nothing to worry about. Maybe some freakishly big dog from a neighboring property had just passed through. Maybe I was overthinking it. Sometimes dogs or wolves can drag their feet a little in the snow and make the prints look like that. But that did not explain the depth and the weight of whatever this was. I remained skeptical and also decided to keep a close watch on things for the next couple of days. A few weekends passed and everything returned to normal. Lily came back on the weekends, though she refused to sleep with any of the curtains or blinds open in the windows. She never mentioned the eyes again, and I never brought them up either. It was bitterly cold one late night that January when it happened again. Lily had been watching TV in the living room while I was upstairs fixing a leaky faucet. Suddenly, she let out a scream that shook me to my core. I ran downstairs and found her frozen, just pointing at the window. She told me the eyes. They were back and they were watching us. I looked outside immediately, but I couldn't see anything. But the reflection of the room and the glass, like deja vu from the last time. I grabbed my handgun and the flashlight and stepped out onto the porch. I shined it all around the yard, seeing nothing but snow. I started shining it a bit farther away, and just beyond the edge of the trees, I picked up a set of eyes. 2 glowing yellow eyes, to be exact, staring straight at me. These eyes did not blink, and they seemed to be fixed on me and also on the house. I felt the hair on my arms stand up. I've seen a lot of animal eye shine, but I don't remember seeing this color. These eyes didn't move, they didn't even flinch, even as I was waving the flashlight back and forth, trying to get them to move. I started yelling and screaming, trying to scare whatever it was away. Still, in my mind, I was thinking it had to be some type of animal, a normal animal. I don't know what the hell this thing truly is. In the time frame of maybe a second, the eyes completely disappeared. I didn't hear a sound, there was no movement, they were just gone. I went back inside a little uneasy, locked the door, closed all the blinds and curtains, and tried to forget about this. It was starting to freak me out a little bit as well. And this is when I began to be a little concerned about not only my daughter's safety, but mine as well. I've never heard of an animal stalking and hunting people inside of their home like this. It was definitely unsettling, and that's putting it mildly. This all probably doesn't sound that terrifying from your end of the story, but when you're actually living it, it's a bit different. My final encounter with this thing happened 2 weeks later. Lily was so terrified at this point that she had refused to come back and visit. She said she didn't feel safe. I wanted to see her, but I was kind of relieved because I didn't feel like she was safe either. I needed to figure this out so my life could go back to normal. I was dealing with enough stress, and I was depressed about all of this at the time due to my divorce. I needed some normalcy, and so did Lily. Now, being there alone at night, I started sleeping with my shotgun next to my bed. At nighttime, the stillness and quietness inside the house was very uneasy. But I managed to fall asleep around 10 or so. I'm not sure what time it was, but I couldn't have been asleep for more than a couple of hours, so it was probably early in the morning, around 1 or 2 a.m. I was woke up by a loud crash coming from downstairs. I jumped up so quick that I was nearly standing in the middle of my bed. The sound came from the back of the house. I was ready to end this, whatever was happening. I grabbed the shotgun and made my way downstairs. The back door was rattling and shaking violently as if someone was trying to force it open. As soon as I started walking towards the door, the sound stopped. That moment of silence that followed was deafening. I didn't want to get too close to the door, so I stretched out the shotgun and flipped on the porch light with the tip of my barrel. I didn't see anything out there, so I walked over and cracked the door open just a little bit, with the shotgun barrel pointed straight out the crack. The snow outside was definitely disturbed. Those same massive canine prints were leading from the woods straight to the back door. I stepped outside just to look around and see if I could pick up movement. I was ready to put some double-aught buck in this thing's hindquarters and put it to scooting. Whether it be a person or an animal, I was fed up with this. Whatever was happening, it had my daughter so scared that she wouldn't even come visit me. It had me so scared that I was sleeping with a shotgun right next to my head. This had to end, and it had to end soon. I debated on calling the cops, but what are they going to do? They're going to see these animal tracks outside and tell me that it's just a bear or some other animal, that I need to not worry about it and stay inside, and then they'd just leave. It's a waste of time and taxpayer dollars. I was going to deal with this my own way, the only way I knew. Anyway, back to the story. As soon as I stepped out on the porch to look around, I heard something off to my right just inside the trees. I heard this really loud stick break on the ground. And if you're a hunter, you understand that when an animal steps on a stick that's on the ground, it makes a completely different sound. It's very easy to recognize. As soon as I heard this snap, it was followed by the craziest growl I've ever heard. It was so deep and low that I could feel it inside of my chest. My flashlight flicked across the yard and the direction, and there it was. The mystery animal had finally decided to come out and show itself. And Lord have mercy, how I wish that I hadn't seen it. Things just got a lot worse from this point on. This thing was standing upright on two legs. It was easily over 6 foot tall because I'm 6'1", and that thing looked to be a lot taller than me. I'm guessing around 7, maybe even 7.5 feet. It was covered in shadowy black fur. It's like when the flashlight hit it, the fur just consumed the light. It had these long, disgusting limbs that didn't fit at all because the body was huge, but the limbs were tiny and bony. Its face was similar to a canine, maybe a wolf, but it seemed disfigured, almost like it was a bit deformed. Its mouth was hanging open, and I could see it was lined with teeth. These really long, weird-shaped teeth. They reminded me of snake fangs, but there wasn't just two. It had a mouthful of these things. And there were these glowing eyes, the glowing yellow eyes that I'd seen before. Now I knew this was the creature that had been terrorizing me and my daughter. That's when complete anger set in. It took a step towards me. I aimed my shotgun and fired without hesitation directly center mass into this abomination. The shot was loud due to being enclosed in between the trees and the house. My ears were ringing, and as soon as I took a look, the creature didn't even flinch. Instead, it let out this insanely mind-numbing howl, and then it charged directly towards me. It was a good 50 yards away, and I was right next to the door. This thing was so fast that it closed the distance within 2 seconds, and I barely had time to close and lock the door before it slammed into it. I backed up into the middle of the kitchen, my shotgun still raised. The growls from the creature grew a lot louder as it started to circle the house. My guess is it was looking for any other way that it could get inside. I think it was also trying to taunt or scare me. As it was walking around the house, it sounded like it would take its claws or fingernails and just drag it along the outside of the wall, all the way from one end to the other. The sounds were unbearable. If it was trying to scare me, it did one hell of a job, I can tell you that much. I was literally close to needing to change my underwear at that point. After about 5 minutes, maybe, of circling outside and scratching the walls, the sounds just stopped. I've heard other people say this, but it was definitely the truth. The loudness of the silence that followed was way worse than the noises themselves. It was the fact that I didn't know where this creature was now, or what it was planning to do next. When it was making the sounds, at least I knew where it was. But luckily, it seemed to have just left because nothing else happened for the rest of the night. I stayed awake drinking multiple cups of coffee with my shotgun laying on the kitchen table. What I did the next morning, some people might shame me for, call me a coward. I could care less. I've hunted all across the U.S. I've been in a lot of situations where I've faced down some dangerous animals. I've never felt fear like I felt when I saw that thing. That is a completely different beast, but there's just something about it. It gives off this energy, this feeling of dread that cannot be explained. So the next morning I packed up everything and I left. Lily deserved better. There is no way that I could bring her back to this place, not after what I'd seen. The house went back on the market within the week. I obviously didn't tell the realtor about the creature. I didn't really need to. The house would sell probably pretty quickly, as the location, I imagine, would be pretty desirable to a lot of people. I found a smaller home in a quiet neighborhood. It's a bit cramped and noisy all the time, but at least we feel safe here. We've lived here for a year and a half, and me and Lily couldn't be happier. I've moved on and actually met someone else. I'm not going to say we're getting married, but things are going well. And to my surprise, Lily seems to like and accept her, so that's a good sign. I'm sure some people are going to tear into me about selling the house and not disclosing any information about what was lurking in the woods. I kinda get that. And looking back on my situation, I wish I had at least mentioned it to the realtor. But you have to understand, I was so terrified that my decision-making abilities at the time were a bit off. I just wanted to get as far away from that house as possible. As far away as I could. I mean, that thing tried to get inside my house to attack me. I was not going to take any chances, especially with my daughter. Oh yeah, and in case anyone's wondering where this happened, I told Reels the state that all this took place in. And if he included it or not, that's totally up to him. I'd rather not give any specific details if I don't have to. I know some people hear the stories and decide to go looking in the areas for these dogmen. I just refuse to be any part of anything so stupid and reckless. If you ever see this thing that I came face to face with, you're going to have a whole new outlook on listening to these encounter stories. Some people's encounters I can't even finish. They will give a certain detail or physical description and it'll bring back memories and I have to turn it off. Seeing something like that will mess you up mentally and psychologically. I still have nightmares from time to time. Lily seems to have moved on. If she has any nightmares or any lingering effects, she hasn't mentioned it. I'm just glad that she only saw the eyes. I thank God for that every day. Well, that's my encounter story, and I thank you for accepting and reading it. I hope everyone has found something useful in some way, even if it is just for entertainment. I used to like listening to scary things as well for entertainment. But those scary stories that I listen to are not real ones. Just keep in mind while listening to me and my daughter are real people. And this event really happened to us. It's not all fun and games. Again, thank you for taking time out of your day to read my story. Peace and love to everyone out there. Eric. Well, there you have it, folks. Another story in the books. This one was terrifying as usual. Same behavior. I still think these things just literally get off on scaring the crap out of people. Thank you, Eric, for sending me your encounter. I truly enjoyed reading it, and I hope I narrated it to your liking. I'm getting wet and cold, so I'm going to end this one quickly. Thank you all for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you. Be sure to hit the like button, share with your friends, comment, and also, most importantly, if you haven't subscribed already, please consider doing so. It's completely free. And don't forget to hit the notification bell as you'll be notified of any future uploads. That's going to do it for this one, guys. Until next time, my friends, watch over your loved ones. Keep your head on a swivel. And as always, good night.